So we wanted to kick off this weekend's event with what history can teach us in relation to Muslims and Jews living together, living and working together in peace, which might seem a rather novel idea in today's times, but was actually the norm in most of our history. So Muslims and Jews not only lived together quite normally and peacefully, but also in times of war and conflict, found themselves as natural allies. Muslim communities would often, at quite considerable personal cost to themselves and their own lives, protect Jewish communities. The episode in history that we will be looking at this evening is not Convivencia of Muslim Spain, Andalusia, which I think we're all quite familiar with, where Muslims and Jews lived together and thrived in relative peace and stability for about 800 years. Our story this evening begins at the fall of Andalusia, when Arab Muslim rule over Spain ends, and Jews, along with Muslims, are then persecuted and expelled from the Iberian Peninsula. Jews then find sanctuary amongst Muslims again, with many fleeing to the Ottoman Muslim rule of the Balkans, and in Bosnia-Herzegovina in particular. This new Muslim-Jewish convivencia continues for the next 400 years until the Nazis turn up during the Second World War, at which point Muslims, again, at considerable personal cost to themselves and their own lives, are found protecting Jewish communities. And we will explore some really interesting examples and episodes here with our speaker. So we'll explore why Jews would often seek sanctuary amongst Muslims, what kind of civilization emerged when Jews and Muslims lived, learnt, and developed together. And once we've explored the Bosnian experience in our speaker's presentation, in the second part of this evening, because we've got almost 2 hours, 1.5 hours, in the second session, we'll explore the present and the future, and with a particular look at the emergence of Zionism and its impact on Muslim-Jewish relations. So now let me introduce our speaker. So our speaker is Dr. Mirnes Kovac. He's a journalist and researcher focusing on issues in the Middle East and the Balkans. He's the author of several books on Islam and contemporary interfaith projects, as well as a researcher in the field of extremism and radicalization. Mirnes graduated in Islamic theology from the Faculty of Islamic Studies at Sarajevo University in 2001. In 2005, he obtained an MA degree in international relations at Sussex University. And last year, he got his PhD from Sarajevo University, and the title of his dissertation is Relations of Bosnia and Herzegovina with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Involvement of the United States of America in Ending the Bosnian War. So it's a very fascinating topic. Since 2005, he's been working as editor and journalist of Preporod, the oldest Islamic news magazine in the Balkans. He has authored a number of books, including One Book for Peace, which was an interreligious creative concept book that won awards at the Cannes Lion International Festivity of Creativity in 2017. He's also written Islam as a Global Challenge in 2004, The Siege of Islam in 2014, and co-authored Left Behind, Survivors of Violent Extremism in 2019. Mirnes is also a regular columnist for Al Jazeera, writing on the Balkans and Middle East issues, and he's published numerous articles and books which have also been translated from English into Bosnian. So it's with great pleasure to hand you over to Dr. Mirnes. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a better way than using this. Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I greet you all with peace and good evening. I'm really honored to be here with you. And I heard about the Muslim Institute, and I was very, very excited to come and to talk about this particular experience that we in Bosnia have. Our Jewish community was endangered by threats and by demands of some of public to distance themselves from what was going on in what was ensuing to come in Gaza. I reacted openly and said, we are Ahlul Kitab. They are our brothers in Kitab, Ahlul Kitab. So we have this community which is fully Bosnian and fully patriotic Bosnian Jewish community which lived with us for centuries. And when I talked to Mr. Hassan Muhammad Ali about what should I tell from Bosnia in these difficult times, you all have experienced throughout this last year a terrible trauma that is on both sides. I think we have trauma on the side of Jewish people generally, who it is visible that Jews around the world are feeling endangered in a situation to be or not to be. And vice versa, the trauma from the horrendous crimes. When I first was invited to comment on what will happen after that attack on 7th of October, which I call terrorist attack because the innocent civilians were terrorized and killed, and I condemned it. I don't have any problem to condemn it because my religion is commanding that such acts be condemned. My idea was to present some historical examples of one unique experience that we still have here in Europe. And that experience is Bosnian. I called it convivencia, from the similar term in Islamic Andalus. Here you have the pages of Sarajevo Haggadah. It is the oldest Jewish prayer book that was saved and preserved in Bosnia. According to some historians, it originates from Muslim Spain. It somehow came to Sarajevo together with Jewish refugees who escaped the persecution and settled in our lands. So we can start now. If I may stand, maybe it's better to. So, how this topic relates to our debate. Some of my personal questions, as you yourself have. Today's Israeli-Palestinian conflict is on the path of clash of two exclusivistic apocalyptic narratives. While all initiatives on peace, even ceasefire, failed, the international order and institutions, conventions, war, humanitarian laws, all regulations regarding conflicts seem to be abandoned. Unfortunately, we are witnessing for a year now that the biggest victims of this conflict are civilians. The voices of religious leaders, public intellectuals, artists, writers are practically silenced. Leading policies of the great powers that blindly support the right of might rather than the might of right. New forms of fascism, political leaders who throw entire nations into abyss in order to stay in power. We are witnessing, though maybe we cannot fully say it, but as a free man, as a free intellectual, I can say it, I can sense it. Why? Because some of the greatest intellectuals in history were witnessing these kinds of phenomena developing in front of their eyes. We have that examples in our recent history in Europe. My presentation is an attempt to offer a different view. Despite all the evil we are witnessing, there is a hope for different path. My presentation tells the story of unique Bosnian experience that also faced tough challenges but survived. Those challenges are still there. What can we learn and what can we do? No one knows fully the right answer now. Because when I said forms of fascism, I'm not designating any people. I'm just following the trends in thinking. When all world can watch almost 20,000 children being killed without any sense of humanity, to ask themselves where we go from this, what will come after this, what will come after this to those societies that are now entangled in conflict. Bosnia has a legacy. I can speak because I come from the people that recently survived genocide. And I can speak freely because my people, even those survived genocide, in the front of all world watching, you all probably remember, there was no acts of revenge, and now there is a peace, and we have moral obligation to speak up against these kinds of what's happening now in Middle East. My presentation will go through three parts. First, I will give some overview of Ottoman period. It begins, as brother said, with Spanish Inquisition, and Bosnia as a land of refugees. Sarajevo, the only capital, European capital, my dear brothers and sisters and fellow, Sarajevo was the only European capital that didn't have Jewish ghettos. And we are proud of it. Why? It is well known in Jewish books, among Jewish intelligentsia, that one of the centers of Jewish established communities in Europe were Sarajevo community. Strong around 14,000, complete number was like 20,000 Jews on the eve of Second World War. So, before the Holocaust, before Second World War, Sarajevo had every fifth Sarajevan was a Jew. Every fifth Sarajevan was a Jew. We had a fully integrated Jewish communities in our mahallas, in our quarters, in public baths in Sarajevo. There was recorded documents that showed that baths were shared both by Jewish women and Muslim women, these women's sections, and men's sections was shared by Jews and Muslims together. So this is very interesting. We come to modern period, and its threshold, the ordeal of survival and Holocaust. And in this period, there is an amazing story of saving Sarajevo Haggadah as a metaphor of saving people, righteous among the nations. And then comes the recent aggression and genocide in Bosnia, how actually Jews were loyal to their homeland, and how this helped our voices to be heard around the world. Okay, so this is actually my presentation. The challenges that we have now are twofold. First, Israeli-Palestinian conflict and its impact on Muslim-Jewish convivencia and relations generally, and also even in our society. Even though we have such a strong tradition of this convivencia, living together and prospering together, today it is being challenged. Recently, as a journalist, I noticed there are attempts to instrumentalize Bosnian Jews and Muslims. How? these are threats to authentic coexistence of Bosnian Muslims and Jews from both sides, you know. There is also a Muslim-Jewish initiative for peace, for dialogue, that was signed by Jewish leaders and our Muslim leaders in Bosnia. And also the most dangerous is this radicalization and its impact on this convivencia that we will talk after in our discussion. So we can now proceed with this few examples that Spanish Inquisition. According to our historians, the first Jews actually came to Bosnia as a result of Inquisition in Spain. They came from 1492 to 1497. They were refugees coming from Spain to Ottoman Empire, and then from port of Saloniki to various Ottoman cities across Balkans. Bosnia, then called Eyalet of Bosnia, was a form of self-governing Ottoman province, very, very independent, because it was the farthest western province of Ottoman Empire. It was one of the few territories in Europe that welcomed Jews. The greatest wave of Jewish refugees came in 16th century, and they settled mainly in Sarajevo as a major city. These first were Sephardim Jews. Ashkenazi Jews, they arrived from Hungary with Austria-Hungarian Empire in 17th and 18th century, and even later. During Ottoman period, as I said, Jews were an integral part of Bosnian multi-ethnic and multi-religious society. Jews in Ottoman Empire were recognized under the law as a non-Muslim subjects, millet system, and prospered significantly. They enjoyed various rights that in those times were not possible in European countries. Some of these rights were possible, for example, in Venice, in some parts of these independent republics across Mediterranean, including right to buy real estate, which was not possible in Europe, to build synagogues, and to conduct trade throughout the Ottoman Empire. You see one of the synagogues, Bosnian synagogue, the old temple. This synagogue, the new synagogue, was actually partly damaged during Second World War, and afterwards, after Holocaust, actually Jews were totally destroyed. Some 90% perished in concentration camps around from concentration camps in our neighborhood to Auschwitz and others. At its peak, the Jewish community of Bosnia and Herzegovina numbered between 14,000 and 22,000 members in 1941. Of those 12,000 to 14,000 lived in Sarajevo capital, comprising 20% of the city's population. So every fifth Sarajevan was a Jew. After the Holocaust, only 2,000 to 2,500 survived and returned from concentration camps. More than 85, up to 90% of Jewish population in Bosnia perished in the Holocaust. And after 1948, more than 50% of these that returned alive from camps emigrated to newly founded State of Israel. Today, the Jewish community in Bosnia and Herzegovina numbers around 750 members. They are not all Jews, but also husbands, spouses, members of families can be members of Jewish community according to their statute. Wider families and marriages and so on. So, Ottoman period, first Jews coming, 16th century, 16th, 17th century arrival of Sephardi Jews from the Ottoman parts of or other parts of Ottoman Empire to Bosnia. Also arrival of Ashkenazis. The critical moment is Holocaust during World War II. Then we have this communist Yugoslavia time period until 1990s. Those who returned and stayed in communist Yugoslavia, they were traumatized. As everything in communist societies, even that topic of Holocaust was somehow put aside. So mainly Jews, they continued to live like all other peoples. They were heavily destroyed their communities and so on. And after fall of communist regime in 1992, Bosnian War, the aggression against Bosnia and Herzegovina, we can say that Jewish solidarity throughout the wars was exceptional. Jews helped in promotion of right cause of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Many of them in Europe, in United States, in important centers here in Britain, in important corridors of power. You all know that in 1990s, the perception of Bosnia was such that President of France said, Bosnia does not belong. Former François Mitterrand. It is testimony that former American president said is in his book. Policy of UK government was very pro-Milosevic. Today, thanks God, it all changed. Thanks to the work of our community, Muslim community in Britain. Thanks to activities of intellectuals across Britain, thanks to our refugees who settled here in Britain. I put 3 examples for my presentation tonight. 3 notable events in Bosnia I pick that symbolize resilience and intercultural cooperation, an exceptional example of true coexistent historical grandeur and intimate emotional intensity. Purim di Sarai, 1819. It's a very interesting story how Sarajevo Muslims saved their Jewish neighbors. Sarajevo Haggadah, the saving of this sacred prayer book, a Jewish prayer book from Inquisition to Nazis to even modern, from modern Serbian barbarism. And of course, La Benevolencia. This is Jews and their role in helping Sarajevans, their neighbors, and in widening story about plight of their neighbors in the capital, in their capital, Sarajevo. Purim di Sarai, you can read it, you can Google it. It's a very interesting historical event. As you all might know, Purim is a Jewish holiday that dates back to 5th century BCE. It is a holiday celebrating the salvation of Jews from the Achaemenid Empire of emperor who accuses all Jews of conspiracy against the empire and wants to destroy them. The emperor's wife sympathizes with Jews, dedicated herself to prayer and fasting, and intercedes with the emperor, exposing the conspiracy and the leader of that plot. The emperor punishes him and the Jews are saved. This event, so it's from Jewish history. But this event is described in Book of Esther and celebrated with great joy in Jewish world. During Purim, this book is read. Besides this Purim, original Purim, there are also a number of other local Purims, such as Purim of Frankfurt in 1615, Cairo 1524, Belgrade from 1822, and a number of others. However, this Sarajevo Purim is special. We'll see. And also, before this slide, you see on the pictures the downtown of Sarajevo and the Jewish cemetery. This particular spot was the main sniper nest of Serbian armies that took that place, and they were killing civilians in Sarajevo. After war, it was restored, and some of these graves were rebuilt and renewed. So we can go now. Purim di Sarai. Jewish Sarajevo Purim happened in October 1819, when 10 prominent Jews of Sarajevo, led by Rabbi Moshe Danon, were saved. The story begins with a certain dervishes, the Sufis, who slandered the Jews and accused them of death of one dervish. That dervish Ahmed was actually convert to Islam. He was former Jew, who had some troubles with his community and decided to leave them and to convert to Islam and to join that dervish order, the Sufi order. This newborn Muslim formerly was very despised among Jews, and having no peace and probably wanting some kind of revenge, went to Pasha in Travnik, to governor of the province. Then it was in Travnik, the other middle town in Middle Bosnia, asking him to impose a heavy tax on Jews and to start torturing them. Pasha listened to him, but decided to check out on him. When the Pasha found what kind of man he was, after that, Dervish Pasha was replaced by Rushdie Pasha, who was member of the influential Sufi order. So these dervishes of Travnik insisted the new Pasha somehow punishes the Jews who they blame for the death of their former colleague, Dervish Ahmed. Purim di Sarai. When this Rushdie Pasha came to Sarajevo, he ordered the arrest of city's most prominent Jews, including this Rabbi Moshe Danon, and demanded ransom first 50,000 and then later 500,000 groshi. The Jewish community was terrified, and many turned to prayer in despair. Outraged by Pasha's decision, prominent leader of Sarajevo Muslims, Ahmed Bayraktar, called the people to protests. This actually was Sarajevans from all walks of life gathered in the front of the Pasha's court, where he kept these dignitaries of Rabbi Danon. The execution was prevented, and later the Jews were freed, and Rushdie Pasha was caught and tied up. It was a kind of local coup d'etat, and Ahmed Bayraktar took over administration of Bosnia while informing the Sultan in Istanbul about Pasha's misdeeds. Rushdie Pasha was executed in Istanbul, and Bosnia got a new Pasha. This is Mazhar, petition of prominent Sarajevans about the atrocities of this Rushdie Pasha. It was addressed to the port in Istanbul, now in museum. We can go now. So this Purim di Sarai, historical sources speak of numbers of 3,000 Sarajevans who came to rebel against that Rushdie Pasha because of imprisoning of Jews, of prominent Jews. Since it was Saturday, Jewish holiday, Ahmed Bayraktar told the Jews to go and praise their God because he preserved them from destruction. This event somehow unified inhabitants, all inhabitants of Sarajevo, and it showed unique spirit of this convivencia. Although more than 200 years have passed since then, this event is still celebrated in Sarajevo as Sarajevo Purim, and it was recounted from memory until it was the event was recounted from memory until it was recorded in Sarajevo Megillah, Megillah the Sarai, written by this Moshe ben Rafael Atias, also known as Zeki Efendi Rafailovic. This is his grave. You see on one side of his grave Jewish letters, on the other inscription in Arabic. He was a well-learned scholar, not just in Judaic studies, but also in Islamic studies. And second example is very interesting. Sarajevo Haggadah. In more than 5 centuries of rich history, the Haggadah has been in danger countless times and has become a symbol of indestructibility and freedom. You see the original Sarajevo Haggadah, and also here it's from the place where it is kept in National Museum in Sarajevo. This survival story, I recommended my friend Hassan this book. It's written by Pulitzer winner Geraldine Brooks, People of the Book. It's a beautiful story based on this book. How actually this wonderful novelist traced the Sarajevo Haggadah back to Spain. And you will see who was the girl that illustrated this prayer book. It's an amazing story. And Geraldine Brooks is a very well-known Pulitzer winner. And so I recommend all of you to take this book and to read it. It's a very beautiful novel based on this story. Actually, this book is following Jews in Europe from Spain to Bosnia. 5 centuries. Somehow it ended up in Bosnia. What is it? These are some of pages from that prayer book. They depict Passover of Moses. It's a ritual book, codex, biblical stories, prayers, and psalms that are read for the Passover. There are no exact details how book left Spain. Somehow it survived. There is a record sometime following century after expulsion of Jews and Muslims from Spain. This Haggadah is recorded in Venice. Venice offered Jews property rights and legal protection rarely matched everywhere in Europe at that time. Still, they had to wear the colored cap and identify, you know that, the special identification and so on. They lived in ghetto. They were banned from most trades, including printing, and Hebrew books that were not approved by censors of Vatican Inquisition were destroyed in public burnings. What happened with Haggadah? According to inscription on the original, Catholic priest Giovanni Domenico Vistorini inspected that book in 1609 in Venice. That is recorded on the pages of book with this inscription: "Revisto per me," surveyed by me. So somehow he approved it can be, it can be used or it's not dangerous. Vistorini apparently found nothing objectionable in the Haggadah, so that writing still present on the pages of this book. How or when the book left Venice and came to Sarajevo is a mystery. And that is, space for novels. And it's beautifully written by Geraldine. It was acquired by the Bosnian National Museum in 1894 when one family, Cohen family, Jewish family, offered it for sale. Nazi ordeal, this is exceptionally important. You see, we go from one period to another period. Johann Hans Fortner, commander of the 718 Division, visited National Museum in Sarajevo and demanded the Haggadah to be handed over to him. There were rumors that Hitler planned to build a museum of extinct people, a Jew town for Aryan tourists to visit. Sarajevo Haggadah was ideal item for that kind of bizarre project. This guy, Dervish Korkut, was librarian of our National Museum. And he probably didn't heard about this Hitler Museum, but he witnessed that already Nazis and puppet state, NDH, National Independent State of Croatia, it was puppet state of Nazis and ruling over Bosnia in that time, that they were also they were already persecuting Jews and burning books. So this guy, when the museum's director, who did not speak German, called for this Orientalist who spoke several languages, French, German, to act as a translator for the Nazis. A few minutes before they were to come, Korkut pleaded to be allowed to take Haggadah. He asked him, please allow me to go to the safe and to take it, because they will take it and it will be lost. This director warned him, you'll be risking your life. Nevertheless, he took that risk, and two men headed in Basant, and according to some accounts, he literally put the book under the coat in front of Nazis. And when these Nazis came, to take over this book, he said, just before you came, another group of officers came and took the book. And this general said, who were they? We were not, we were afraid to ask. This guy replied, and in such a way he saved this book. This is now testimony. This is his Dervish Korkut in his late after retirement. Above is his wife, Servet Korkut. Both of them are now in Yad Vashem as a righteousness of the nations, how they call it. Haggadah was saved in the last moment by this librarian, and Korkut's wife testified about how actually he risked his life and saved the book. I knew he had a book from the library, and that it was very important, she recalled. He said, take care, don't tell. No one must know, or they'll kill us and destroy the book. He took that book and drove to one village in the mountains, and went to a local imam and consulted with him, what should I do? And imam took that book and put that book among mushafs, because no one will look for the Jewish book in the mosque. It's an amazing story. You can see, you can read about it. There are some articles, but I think this actually shows how Muslims, actually Bosnian Muslims, how they cherished the book. And by cherishing the book, how they actually showed the humanity to save people, to save their fellow neighbors, citizens, sorry for being here. It's our tradition. It's our Bosnian experience of convivencia. Another example from the same years. You see that that was a kind of that was zar. We call it zar, but it's a kind of niqab. The shoes actually of women are almost shown. Between 50 and 60 Bosnian individuals, men and women, of various ethnic origins, had been recognized as righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem. Among them was this Dervish Korkut and his wife Servet, who saved young Jewish girl Donkica Papo. Donkica Papo, later Mira Bakovic, whose parents were sent to Ustasha concentration camp. Also, there is an example of wealthy Hargada family, and this is that picture or photo of Hargada. Zeyneba Hargada, far right, hiding with her veil, Jewish lady Rivka Kavillo, yellow ribbon during World War II in Sarajevo. So when they went to town, she would hide with her robe that mark that Jews were asked to wear by Nazis. They accepted whole family of this Rivka Kavillo, her husband, her kids, and the Hargada family. Zeyneba said to Rivka and her husband, "Please feel free. You are like us in our house," offering home and shelter. This is testimony from historical sources about this Zeyneba Hargada. And we come to 90s, completely surrounded, without water, electricity, constantly bombed. On one day, more than 3,000 grenades fell in one day from surrounding hills around the town. So, this Jewish community in Sarajevo, they were they founded this La Benevolencia. They had it before, and this meaning La Benevolencia translates this word sevap in Hebrew, mitzvah, doing good. More importantly, Jews and their role in saving Bosnia in diplomatic circles, for example. Our first Minister of Foreign Affairs, our first ambassador, then Minister of Foreign Affairs, our ambassador to the United States was a Jew, this Alkali, Sven Alkali. Almost all leading judges and prosecutors of Hague Tribunal were prominent Jews, and the first journalist to discover concentration camps in Bosnia was Roy Gutman, a Jewish American journalist. So somehow this mitzvah, this sevap, was returned back by Jews around the globe, and their role was positive and human and exceptional sympathy towards Bosnian Muslims. Now we come to the current situation. I only took 3, and I think that there are much more what can unite us, what can unite us in cause, to reach out, to speak, to warn people, to raise our voices. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, I was walking down in Piccadilly Circus, in front of and down to the Parliament buildings, And I found people protesting for this, against this arming of regime of Israel. And I met a Jewish guy who came there to convince them that they should not protest. And I wanted to take a picture of that encounter between them. You know, a Jewish guy with a kippah and a Palestinian guy holding Palestinian flag. And he prevented me. He said, no, please, do not take pictures. Okay, I won't. And I said afterwards, he approached me and said, where are you from? I said, I came from Sarajevo, and I'm coming from European capital that really had a rich history of Jewish people and good relations. But what I am fearful, that today it seems that the situation is so pessimistic and so electrified towards militantism, towards conflict, towards destruction. That guy who is not Zionist, and he is declaring himself that he is not Zionist, is starting to explain me that it is a good thing for what's happening to be, for those to be punished, to remember not to repeat the crimes according to him. I was shocked. I was really shocked. And what's the major problem? And we can leave this for discussion. This problem of apocalyptic in both camps. We have that both in Muslim and in Jewish camp. You see, both sides somehow are presenting these narratives as the only solution. Even though Jewish and Muslim coexistence has 13 centuries of history and such good examples everywhere, like the Bosnian one. I think this presentation can open a discussion and ideas that we cannot remain silent. We cannot allow to be suppressed by these, calls from governments and media. The issue of common humanity is at stake, because this humanity cannot survive if, especially that part of the world, if the narrative is being pushed into that direction. I thank you all. I hope we can have some further questions and discussion. Thank you very much.